All right, so we're going to be talking about power and root functions today, section 5.4. So when a function is in the form of x to the b power, okay, where b is a constant. So remember, constant is just going to be a number without a variable, then that's considered a power function. So keep thinking about we're taking it to a power, that's a power function. All right, now when your b is 1 over n, so when it's written in a fraction form, okay, and n is an integer. So an integer being a positive or negative whole number only, okay, it doesn't include fractions or decimals, okay, where n is greater than or equal to 2, because if it were 1, then that would just be 1. So that's why 2 or greater. So it's going to be 1/2, 1/3, could be a negative 1/2 or negative 1/3. Then that is considered a root function. So down here, when x, a function is x to the 1 over n, okay, that can also be written as x to the first power to the nth root. These are equivalent. All right, so let's talk a little bit about those. So on your study notes, and again, if you don't have those, it's fine. I went ahead and wrote them out for you. So given 16 to the third fourth power, I want you to keep in mind, this is the power, and the denominator is the root. So I can rewrite this as 16 to the third power, and it's going to be then to the fourth root. All right, so these are equivalent. And then I could finish solving that. So in your calculator, I have my 84 here. You can see it, it's not too much of a glare. So we're going to take fourth root of 16 to the third power. So if you don't know how to do a root, so if you go to now this is only on the 84, 83s, both are the same pretty much. If you have a different calculator, just work with it, try and maybe you have to Google it. If you get stuck, let me know, maybe I can help you with it. But with the 83, 84s, you could just go to math, and you can see that when you go down to 4, excuse me, that is a cube root. And then when I go down to a fifth one, right, number 5, you can't really see that, but this is actually an x right here. So you would have to put in whatever root it is. So anything larger than 3, you'll have to do that. So let me show you how to do that. So if we want to take a fourth root of 16 to the third, we want to do a fourth root. So anything greater than 3, you got to put a 4 in. I'm going to go to math. I'm going to go to number 5, and that's going to give me a fourth root. That's what that means. And then I just need to put 16, and I just use the caret tot, to the third power. And so our answer on that is 8, which I know you probably can't see very well, but that answer then is 8. Okay, so you can kind of practice that with your calculator. Now this one, let's rewrite this one. So notice this one is written in root form. So let's rewrite it in the power form right here. So if we do that, that's going to be, we're going to take the power over the root, right? So we're going to take a negative 64 to the power over the root. And so that we can also write as an exponent, okay? But we can also then just put that into the calculator. One thing I want to show you though is kind of breaking it down. This is the same thing as saying if I wanted to do negative 64 to the fourth power to the 1/3. So this is your root. So remember, root is always written 1 over an integer. So that's another way that this can be written, just so you recognize that. Same thing over here. If I wanted to write it that way, I have 16 to the third power to the root, which is 4, so it'd be written 1/4. All right, just want you to be aware to see that. And then if I multiply that back together, you get 3/4. So if I multiply this back together, 4 over 1 times 1 over 3, it's 4/3. Now we can go back and we can put it in the calculator this way, or we can put it in this way. Either way, it doesn't really matter. So let's go ahead and really, are we going to include that negative? What do you think? It's under the square root together, so we are going to include that. All right, so let's, on the calculator, let's go ahead and take negative, we can use either one of these. Let's just do a negative 64 caret top, and let's just take it to the 4/3. When you do a fraction out here, when you're doing this power, go ahead and put it in a parenthesis. Okay, it's really important that you put parentheses in when you're doing your order of operations on the calculator. All right, so our answer then is 256. So you can practice that on your own calculator and see. Try putting it in this way and try putting it in this way, or either one. See if you can just keep getting the same answer. All right, so this could be written then, if we want to write it as two ways. I'm going to show you two ways. We can take negative 125 squared to the 1/3. Okay, that's just showing what the root is. But now let's take it and write it in root form. So if we write it in root form, power root. So it's going to be negative 125 to the 2nd power cube root. So let's put that in the calculator. So let's take cube root. So remember, there is a cube root under math. The cube root is number 4. So you can just go straight to number 4. And then we have, I'm going to use a parenthesis, which is already there, negative 125. Wow, there we go. And squared. I'd probably put a parenthesis and then square it. You can do it either way. And so we're going to get 25. Okay, any questions on that? I hope not, because I can't answer them. Sorry, I'm used to having my class. Okay, all right, so let's move on from that. All right, so let's take a look at writing radicals with rational exponents. So it's kind of what we just talked about. We're going to write it as a rational exponent. So we're going to take it from this root form, this radical form, and we're going to write it like this as an exponent. So we're going to start with x. Okay, what is the power of x? Well, it's 1. There's nothing showing there. It's a 1. And what is the root? If there's not a number in the root, it's always a square root. So how about this one? So x power over root. So anytime you want to pause these and just practice some of these examples, you're welcome to do that as well. All right, so here we're going to have z to the negative 5th power over the root. All right, now this one, remember when you have an operation here, you have to keep that together. So on this particular one, we're going to have x plus 1. Again, it's to the 1 power square root. All right, now this one, looks like I forgot to put a number in there. All right, let's put an x there. So here we are going to go ahead and put it into here, and then we're going to go ahead and work this out and simplify it because we have a multiplication there. So we're going to have to work that out. So this is going to be x to the 1 power square root times x to the 1 power cubed root. Okay, now we want to continue that because we have to finish simplifying this with the multiplication. So remember, when we multiply variables, we add their powers. But what we have to do when we add fractions is we have to get a common denominator. So let's do that. So we have a common denominator for 2 and 3 would be 6. So I have to multiply 2 times 3 to get 6. So if I multiply this times 3, I have to multiply the numerator times 3. That's where we get this. Okay. Plus, remember, we're going to add the powers. To get 6 here, we have to take it times 2 times 2. So we have 2 6. So our answer then is going to be x to the 3 plus 2 to the 5 6. All right, last thing, we've kind of already talked about using the calculator to solve these. So maybe you want to try them. Go ahead and pause, try them, and then come back and see if you get the same answers that I do. So I am using the calculator. I'm going to have you round. Let's round to the 10th place, which is 1 decimal. Okay, 1 decimal place on that. So here, let's do this first one. I can fit these both on here. I think it's easier to put it on this side. Bear with me for a minute here. All right, so let's see if we can get them both on here. All right, so we want to do the fifth root of negative 243. So remember, we're going to go 5, then we'll go to our math, go down to number 5 that has the x, and then put in, and then remember this bottom right here, this is your negative. Don't use the minus or it will come out as an error. You got to use the negative sign. Okay. So we have a negative 243. And that gives us a negative 3. Okay. All right, let's look at the next one. So let's get over one here to 15 to the negative 1/6. And the main thing on this is I just want you to be sure that you are putting parentheses around this part right here. So 15, caret top parenthesis, negative 1 divided by 6. All right, that's how you can write that fraction. All right, so rounding, like I said, to the tenths place, that's 1 decimal. So we're going to look here. If this is 5 or greater, we add 1. If it's less, then we don't. So that's going to be approximately. And these are approximate signs when you estimate 0.6. And then lastly, let's do this one. So here, I'm going to go ahead and put that 4 divided by 7. All right, remember, that's just a division sign to show that fraction. 4 divided by 7, caret top, negative button at the bottom. And you don't really have to put 0.6. You can just put 0.6, whichever is fine. Okay, and that's about 1.399. So if we round to this place right here, this is 5 or greater. So that's going to be approximately 1.4. Now, just to kind of show you this on your calculators, it's kind of hard because you guys aren't in class to kind of show, but if you wanted to take this and put it into a fraction, you could just go to math, and you see where it says fraction there? You just hit 1, enter, and well, okay, the reason why I won't do that is because it's not going to go back into a regular fraction, but let's say I had something like 0.25, and I wanted to know what that was as a fraction. You can go to math, go to fraction, and that will put it into a fraction for you, just so you know how to convert to a fraction if you need to. Now, on those ones before, because that is going to be an irrational number, what we found here, because it goes on infinitely and doesn't repeat, so that's called irrational. That's not going to be able to put an irrational number back into a fraction because it's a number that never ends. So that's why that wouldn't put it back into a fraction. Okay. All right. So that's pretty much all I have for you right now. So this will be your section 5.4, and really just be sure that you can write it from a, if you want to take it from an exponent to a radical form, from a radical to an exponent, and be able to do it with calculator. That's mainly things that you need to get out of section 5.4. All right, guys, have a great day.